The bicycle was not invented by an athlete. It wasn't invented by an engineer chasing speed, or a racer, or anyone who particularly wanted to go fast. It was invented by a German forestry official because the horses died. And the horses died because of a volcano on the other side of the world. This is the strangest chain of cause and effect in industrial history, and every single link in it is real. April 1815. Sumbawa, in what's now Indonesia. Mount Tambora had been quiet for roughly 5,000 years. On the 10th of April, it stopped being quiet. The eruption was heard 1,600 miles away. Officials in Sumatra assumed it was cannon fire and dispatched troops to look for a battle that wasn't happening. Tambora threw somewhere in the region of 100 cubic kilometers of rock into the sky. It removed about a mile of its own summit. It remains the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history. Not in the last century, not in the last millennium. Recorded history. "10,000 people died. But the first day isn't the story. The thing that mattered wasn't the rock, it was the sulfur. Tambora was violent enough to punch sulfur dioxide through the troposphere, where weather happens, where rain would have washed it out within days, and up into the stratosphere, above the weather. Up there, it did something else. It combined with water vapor and formed a fine haze of sulfuric acid droplets, microscopic, reflective, and it spread. Over the following months, that veil wrapped itself around the entire planet. It was, functionally, it was a very thin mirror between the Earth and the Sun, and it stayed there for roughly 3 years. Here's the part people usually find unsettling. Nobody knew. There was no mechanism in 1816 to connect a mountain in Indonesia to a wheat field in Vermont. The information simply could not travel. So the entire northern hemisphere sat inside a global climate event and experienced it as bad luck. The Merorid pump and experienced it as bad luck. They noticed the sunsets, though. All across Europe, for the better part of 2 years, the evening sky turned strange. Deep reds, oranges, a heavy luminous quality that painters at the time started putting on canvas. The most beautiful sunsets in a generation. And they were a symptom. 1816 got a nickname. Several, actually. In New England, they called it 1800 and froze to death. Global temperatures dropped by well under a single degree. That sounds like nothing. It was catastrophic. Because a fraction of a degree in the average doesn't arrive smoothly. It arrives as a frost in the second week of June. It snowed in New England that June. There was frost in July, and again in August. Farmers planted, watched it die, replanted, watched it die again. Some replanted 3 times. In Europe it was worse, because Europe was already broken. Napoleon had surrendered 10 months earlier. The continent was full of demobilized soldiers. wrecked farmland, and no slack anywhere in the system. Grain prices doubled. In some regions, they tripled. There were bread riots in France, in Switzerland, in Britain. Ireland got a typhus epidemic. It became the last great subsistence crisis of the Western world. And somewhere inside all of that, somewhere, well down the list of things anyone was worried about, was oats. Oats were horse fuel. A horse is not a machine you can switch off. It eats whether or not you use it. And in 1816, feeding one became an unaffordable luxury. So across Europe, horses were sold. Horses were slaughtered. Horses starved, which left a continent that ran on horses, short of horses. In Mannheim, in the Grand Duchy of Baden, there was a civil servant named Karl von Drais. His job was forestry administration. His actual interest was transport. He'd already built a four-wheeled, human-powered carriage that nobody wanted. He was, by most accounts, a slightly ridiculous figure to his contemporaries. On the 12th of June, 1817, Drais wheeled out a wooden frame with two wheels in line, a padded rest for his arms, and a steerable front wheel. No pedals, no chain. You sat on it, and you ran. He rode about 8 miles out to a coaching inn and back in a little over an hour, roughly 4 times faster than walking. He called it the Laufmaschine, the running machine. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is where a lot of retellings overreach. Drais never wrote down, "I invented this because of the volcano." The horse shortage explanation is a historian's argument made most forcefully by Hans-Erhard Lessing in the 1990s, and it's now the leading explanation rather than a proven one. But the timing is very hard to ignore. Europe's horse supply collapses. Within 12 months, a man in the middle of that collapse builds the first machine in history designed to replace a horse with a person. And then it failed. The running machine had a genuine moment. It spread to Paris, to London, where dandies rode them and the press mocked them relentlessly. But the roads of 1818 were rutted, filthy, and unpaved, so riders moved onto the pavements and started hitting people. Within about 2 years, the machine was banned outright in London, in Milan, in Philadelphia, in Calcutta. Meanwhile, the sulfur veil thinned, the harvests recovered, oats got cheap, the horses came back. And the bicycle, the single most efficient means of human transport ever devised, simply stopped. For roughly 40 years. Nobody bolted pedals onto it until the 1860s, in Paris. It took until the 1880s to look like something you'd recognize. The invention wasn't ahead of its time. It was exactly on time, for a problem that went away. One footnote, because it's too good to leave out. That same ruined summer of 1816, a group of writers took a house on Lake Geneva and found themselves trapped indoors by relentless rain. To pass the time, they agreed to each write a ghost story. One of them was 18 years old. Her name was Mary Shelley. And what she wrote that fortnight was Frankenstein. A volcano in Indonesia produced the bicycle, and modern science fiction in the same 18 months. Systems are stranger than they look.